The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base as Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez walked toward the convoy staging area. Her boots clicked against the concrete with practiced precision, each step reflecting years of military training that had become second nature. At 28, Maria had spent nearly a decade serving her country, working her way up through the ranks with determination that impressed even her most skeptical commanding officers. Maria had grown up in a small town in Texas where military service was considered both an honor and a necessity for many families struggling to make ends meet. Her father had served in Vietnam, returning home with stories that painted war in shades of gray rather than the black and white most civilians imagined. Her mother worked double shifts at the local diner to support the family while her father dealt with injuries that kept him from steady employment. Military service offered Maria not just a career path, but a way to serve something greater than herself while building skills that would last a lifetime. The decision to join the military had not been easy. Maria excelled in high school, particularly in mathematics and science, earning scholarships that could have taken her to college. However, the financial burden on her family made military service the more practical choice. She enlisted immediately after graduation, determined to prove that a young Latina from a small town could succeed in an institution that had traditionally been dominated by men from different backgrounds. Basic training had been brutal but transformative. Maria discovered reserves of strength she never knew she possessed, both physical and mental. The drill sergeants pushed every recruit to their breaking point, but Maria found that her breaking point was further away than most. She learned to navigate complex social dynamics, building alliances with fellow recruits while maintaining the individual excellence that would set her apart throughout her career. Her early assignments took her to bases across the United States and, eventually, overseas. Each posting brought new challenges and opportunities to prove herself. Maria specialized in logistics and convoy operations, understanding that modern military success depended as much on moving supplies efficiently as it did on combat effectiveness. She studied transportation routes, supply chain management, and personnel coordination with the same intensity other soldiers brought to weapons training. The convoy operations Maria managed involved moving everything from basic supplies to sensitive equipment across challenging terrain. These missions required precise planning, split-second decision-making, and the ability to adapt when circumstances inevitably changed. Maria earned a reputation for thoroughness and reliability that made her a go-to leader when difficult missions needed to be executed flawlessly. Her commanding officers noticed Maria's exceptional performance early in her career. She received commendations for missions completed under difficult conditions, including one particularly challenging operation where mechanical failures and severe weather threatened to derail a critical supply run. Maria improvised solutions, coordinated with multiple units, and ensured that essential medical supplies reached their destination despite seemingly impossible obstacles. This reputation for problem-solving under pressure led to increasingly responsible assignments. Maria found herself briefing senior officers, training junior personnel, and serving as a liaison between different units that needed to coordinate complex operations. Her ability to communicate clearly across rank structures and specialties made her invaluable in situations where miscommunication could have serious consequences. The base where Maria currently served was a major logistics hub supporting operations across a wide geographic area. Convoys departed daily carrying supplies to smaller outposts, forward operating bases, and allied units operating in remote locations. The coordination required was immense, involving weather monitoring, route planning, vehicle maintenance, personnel scheduling, and constant communication with receiving units. Maria's typical day began before dawn with briefings about overnight developments that might affect planned operations. Intelligence updates, weather reports, mechanical issues, and personnel changes all had to be factored into convoy planning. She worked closely with transportation specialists, communications experts, and security personnel to ensure that every mission had the best possible chance of success. The convoy staging area where Maria was heading that morning was a carefully organized space where vehicles were loaded, inspected, and prepared for departure. Massive trucks capable of carrying tons of supplies lined up in precise formations, their drivers conducting pre-departure checks with military precision. Loading crews worked efficiently to secure cargo according to strict protocols designed to maintain balance and accessibility during transport. As Maria approached the staging area, she noticed an unusual level of activity around the command post. Additional personnel were present, including several officers she did not immediately recognize. Military bases operated according to routine that made unexpected activity immediately noticeable to experienced personnel. Maria's instincts, sharpened by years of service, told her that something significant was developing. The morning briefing had mentioned a special convoy operation scheduled for later that day, but details had been limited. Maria understood that some operations required compartmentalized information sharing, where personnel received only the details necessary for their specific roles. However, the level of security and apparent importance of this particular mission seemed unusual even by military standards. Maria's role in convoy operations typically involved detailed advance planning, but the special mission parameters had been kept deliberately vague. She knew that flexibility and adaptability were essential qualities for military leaders, particularly in logistics where changing circumstances could require immediate adjustments to carefully planned operations. The staging area buzzed with controlled activity as personnel prepared for the day's missions. Regular convoy operations continued alongside preparations for the special mission, requiring careful coordination to ensure that routine operations were not disrupted. Maria observed the organized chaos with professional appreciation, understanding the complex coordination required to maintain multiple simultaneous operations. Her years of experience had taught Maria to read the subtle signs that indicated when something significant was developing. The presence of additional security personnel, the careful positioning of certain vehicles, and the focused intensity of senior officers all suggested that the special convoy would be more than a routine supply run. Maria felt the familiar combination of anticipation and professional readiness that came with challenging assignments. As she moved through the staging area, Maria mentally reviewed the protocols and procedures that governed convoy operations. Emergency procedures, communication protocols, route alternatives, and contingency plans were all part of the comprehensive training that prepared military personnel for unexpected situations. Maria's thorough knowledge of these procedures had been tested multiple times throughout her career, and she approached each mission with confidence built on solid preparation. The morning air carried the familiar sounds of military operations, vehicle engines warming up, radio communications coordinating between units, and the efficient movements of personnel executing well-practiced procedures. For Maria, these sounds represented purpose and mission accomplishment, the tangible expression of military readiness and capability. Her radio crackled to life with routine communications between convoy teams and the command post. Maria listened with the automatic attention of an experienced military professional, filtering important information from routine chatter while maintaining awareness of overall operational status. This ability to process multiple information streams simultaneously was a skill that had served her well throughout her career. The special convoy vehicles were positioned separately from routine operations, with additional security measures that immediately caught Maria's attention. These protocols indicated cargo or passengers of particular importance, requiring enhanced protection and security awareness. Maria's experience with sensitive operations had taught her to respect the need for such measures while maintaining the professional flexibility necessary to adapt to evolving requirements. As she approached the command post to receive her daily assignments, Maria noticed military police officers conducting what appeared to be routine security checks. Military bases operated under strict security protocols that required constant vigilance and verification of personnel credentials. Maria had been through countless such checks throughout her career and approached with the automatic compliance of an experienced service member. The morning sun climbed higher, casting sharper shadows across the base as activity levels increased with the approaching departure times for scheduled convoys. Maria checked her watch, noting that she was arriving at her scheduled time despite the additional security measures she had observed. Punctuality was a military virtue that Maria had embraced early in her career, understanding that reliable timing was essential for complex operations involving multiple coordinated elements. Her mind was focused on the day's responsibilities as she prepared to report for duty, unaware that the next few minutes would dramatically alter her role in the special convoy operation that was already generating unusual activity throughout the base. The military police checkpoint appeared routine as Maria approached with her identification ready. 2 officers flanked the entrance to the command post, their posture alert but not unusual for standard security protocols. Sergeant First Class Johnson and Corporal Williams had been conducting security checks all morning, verifying credentials of personnel involved in the day's operations. Maria presented her military identification card with the automatic efficiency of someone who had completed this process thousands of times throughout her career. The laminated card contained her photograph, rank, service number, and security clearances necessary for her duties in convoy operations. She expected the quick scan and verification that typically took less than 30 seconds for personnel with appropriate clearances. However, Sergeant Johnson studied her identification with unusual intensity. His examination of the card extended far beyond the routine glance that Maria had experienced countless times before. He held the card closer to the light, examining security features with the thoroughness typically reserved for suspicious documents or unfamiliar personnel. "Ma'am, I need to verify some information on your identification," Sergeant Johnson said, his tone professional but carrying an undertone of concern that immediately caught Maria's attention. Years of military service had taught her to recognize when routine procedures were becoming something more significant. Corporal Williams moved to a position that provided better observation angles while maintaining security protocols. The shift was subtle but noticeable to Maria, who understood military positioning and the implications of various formations. She remained calm, drawing on her experience with unexpected situations that required professional composure. "Is there a problem with my identification, Sergeant?" Maria asked, maintaining the respectful tone appropriate for interaction with military police while seeking clarification about the unusual delay. Her mind quickly reviewed possible explanations for the extended verification process. "Ma'am, the photograph on your identification appears to have some inconsistencies that require additional verification," Sergeant Johnson replied, comparing the card repeatedly to Maria's appearance. His concern seemed genuine rather than procedural, suggesting that he had identified something that required investigation. Maria felt a mixture of confusion and concern as she processed this information. Her identification had been recently updated and had functioned without problems for months of routine security checks. She maintained her professional composure while mentally reviewing possible explanations for the apparent discrepancy. The delay attracted attention from other personnel in the area. Military bases operated on precise schedules, and any disruption to normal flow patterns was immediately noticeable. Maria became aware that her situation was drawing observation from nearby service members, adding a layer of professional embarrassment to her growing concern about the identification problem. "Sergeant, my identification has been verified multiple times recently without any problems," Maria said, providing additional context that might help resolve the apparent discrepancy. She thought about recent security checks, base access procedures, and mission briefings where her credentials had been accepted without question. Sergeant Johnson continued his examination while Corporal Williams maintained security protocols around the checkpoint. The thorough verification process was creating a bottleneck that affected other personnel attempting to access the command post area. Maria could see the professional tension building as routine operations were impacted by the extended security check. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to conduct additional verification procedures," Sergeant Johnson announced, reaching for his radio to communicate with higher authority. This escalation transformed what had seemed like a minor administrative issue into something that could have significant implications for Maria's career and immediate mission responsibilities. The radio communication crackled with official codes and verification requests that Maria could only partially understand. Military police had their own specialized procedures and communication protocols that differed from the convoy operations procedures with which Maria was familiar. She waited with growing apprehension as the verification process moved beyond local resolution. Other personnel began routing around the checkpoint, creating additional movement patterns that affected the normal flow of morning operations. Maria realized that her situation was becoming a visible disruption that could have implications beyond the immediate identification verification problem. Military careers could be significantly impacted by security incidents, regardless of whether they were ultimately resolved favorably. The command post area continued its busy morning operations while Maria remained at the checkpoint awaiting resolution of her identification problem. She observed convoy preparation activities continuing around her, noting the efficient coordination of personnel and equipment that characterized successful military logistics operations. Her professional mind automatically cataloged details about vehicle positioning, loading procedures, and communication patterns even while dealing with her personal security situation. Sergeant Johnson's radio communication extended longer than typical verification procedures. Maria could hear partial conversations involving verification codes, database queries, and requests for supervisory guidance that suggested the identification problem was more complex than a simple administrative error. Her concern deepened as she realized that resolution might require significant time and, potentially, higher-level intervention. Corporal Williams maintained his position while monitoring the broader security situation around the checkpoint. His attention was divided between Maria's verification process and the ongoing flow of personnel requiring access to the command post area. Military police training emphasized maintaining overall security awareness even while dealing with specific incidents. The morning sun continued its climb, marking time that Maria would normally have spent receiving briefings and preparing for convoy operations. She calculated the potential impact of the delay on her scheduled responsibilities, understanding that convoy operations required precise timing and coordination that could be disrupted by unexpected personnel issues. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside while we complete the verification process," Sergeant Johnson instructed, directing Maria to a designated waiting area that provided security separation while allowing normal checkpoint operations to continue. This procedure indicated that the identification problem was being treated as a significant security matter rather than a routine administrative issue. The waiting area provided Maria with a clear view of the command post entrance and the ongoing activities of personnel moving through security checkpoints. She watched the efficient processing of other service members whose identifications were verified without problems, highlighting the unusual nature of her situation. Her mind raced through possible explanations for the identification discrepancy. Recent administrative changes, database updates, or even simple technical errors could potentially cause verification problems. However, the seriousness with which the military police were treating the situation suggested that the problem might be more significant than a routine administrative error. The special convoy preparation activities continued in the background, with additional security measures and personnel coordination that indicated the importance of the mission. Maria realized that her identification problem could potentially impact her participation in operations that appeared to be of particular significance. Radio communications between the checkpoint and higher authority continued with increasing frequency and apparent urgency. Maria could hear fragments of conversations that included references to security protocols, verification procedures, and requests for guidance that suggested the identification problem was escalating rather than approaching resolution. Other personnel in the area began to notice the extended delay and security protocols surrounding Maria's situation. Military communities were relatively small, and unusual incidents quickly became known throughout the base. Maria became aware that her professional reputation could be affected by the outcome of the identification verification process. The command post area maintained its high level of activity as morning operations proceeded despite the security incident at the checkpoint. Maria observed the coordination of personnel, equipment, and communications that characterized effective military operations, understanding that her potential exclusion from the day's activities could impact mission effectiveness. Sergeant Johnson completed another radio communication and approached Maria with an expression that suggested significant developments in the verification process. His demeanor remained professional but carried additional seriousness that indicated the situation was moving toward some form of resolution. "Ma'am, I need to inform you that this situation requires command attention," Sergeant Johnson announced, his tone carrying the weight of official military communication. This escalation meant that Maria's identification problem had moved beyond routine military police procedures into command-level decision-making processes. The implications of command involvement were significant for Maria's career and immediate situation. Command attention could range from simple administrative resolution to serious security investigations that might have long-term consequences. She maintained her professional composure while preparing for whatever developments might emerge from higher-level review of her situation. The checkpoint area buzzed with continued activity as other personnel moved through routine security procedures while Maria's situation required specialized handling. She realized that the next few minutes would likely determine not only her participation in the day's convoy operations but potentially her standing within the military community on the base. The sound of approaching vehicles drew everyone's attention as a convoy of official military staff cars moved toward the command post with unmistakable urgency. The lead vehicle bore the distinctive markings and flags that indicated the presence of senior military leadership. Maria felt her heart rate increase as she realized that whatever was developing around her identification issue had attracted attention from the highest levels of base command. A black sedan with tinted windows pulled up directly in front of the command post, followed by two escort vehicles carrying additional personnel. The precision of the arrival and the immediate security perimeter established by accompanying personnel indicated that a very senior officer was about to make an appearance. Maria had seen such arrivals before, but always from a distance and never in connection with her own circumstances. The rear door of the lead vehicle opened, and a figure emerged that immediately commanded the attention of every service member in the area. Brigadier General Patricia Williams stepped out with the confident bearing that marked her as one of the most respected leaders in the modern military. Her uniform was immaculate, her bearing unmistakably authoritative, and her presence transformed the atmosphere around the command post. General Williams had built her career on a foundation of exceptional performance in logistics operations, strategic planning, and personnel leadership that had earned her recognition throughout the military hierarchy. Her rise through the ranks had been marked by successful management of complex operations, innovative solutions to logistical challenges, and an unwavering commitment to excellence that inspired subordinates and impressed superiors. At 52 years old, General Williams represented the success possible for dedicated military professionals willing to commit themselves completely to service excellence. Her background included combat zone deployments, staff positions at the highest levels of military command, and specialized training that had prepared her for the complex responsibilities of general officer rank. She was known throughout the military for her ability to assess situations quickly and make decisions that balanced operational requirements with personnel considerations. The general's arrival created an immediate shift in the dynamics around the command post. Personnel automatically straightened to attention, conversations ceased, and the entire area took on the focused atmosphere that characterized military operations when senior leadership was present. Maria found herself standing at attention despite her uncertain status in the identification verification situation. General Williams moved with purposeful stride toward the military police checkpoint, her attention clearly focused on the situation involving Maria. The combination of authority and apparent personal interest in Maria's circumstances created a surreal atmosphere that left Maria struggling to understand how her routine morning had escalated into a situation involving general officer attention. Sergeant Johnson, report, General Williams commanded as she approached the checkpoint. Her voice carried the clear authority of someone accustomed to immediate and complete responses from subordinates. The tone was professional but carried undertones that suggested significant importance was attached to the situation. "Ma'am, we have a personnel identification verification issue that requires command guidance," Sergeant Johnson replied, presenting Maria's identification card to the general with military precision. His demeanor reflected the seriousness appropriate when reporting to senior officers about security matters. General Williams examined the identification card with the same intensity that Sergeant Johnson had displayed, but with the additional authority and experience that came with her rank and background. Her examination was thorough but efficient, reflecting years of experience with personnel and security matters at the highest levels of military command. "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez," General Williams said, reading the name from the identification card while looking directly at Maria. The use of her name and rank in the general's voice created an immediate personal connection that transformed the situation from an abstract security matter into a direct interaction with senior leadership. "Yes, ma'am," Maria replied, maintaining military bearing despite her confusion about why a general officer was personally involved in what had appeared to be a routine identification verification problem. Her military training provided automatic responses for interaction with senior officers, but the circumstances were unlike anything she had previously experienced. "Staff Sergeant, I understand there have been questions about your identification credentials," General Williams continued, her tone remaining professional but carrying undertones that suggested the situation was more complex than it initially appeared. Her direct engagement with Maria indicated that the identification problem was connected to larger issues requiring general officer attention. "Yes, ma'am, though I'm not certain about the nature of the problem," Maria replied honestly, maintaining the respectful tone appropriate for addressing senior officers while acknowledging her confusion about the circumstances that had led to general officer involvement in her situation. General Williams studied Maria with the assessment skills that had served her throughout her military career. Her evaluation encompassed not just Maria's immediate responses but also her bearing, composure, and professional demeanor under the pressure of unexpected circumstances involving senior leadership attention. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, your identification credentials have been verified through multiple security databases, General Williams announced, her tone carrying the authority of definitive resolution. This statement immediately resolved the immediate security concern while raising new questions about why the verification process had required general officer intervention. The relief that Maria felt was immediately tempered by growing curiosity about the circumstances that had brought a general officer to personally resolve what should have been a routine administrative matter. Military procedures typically involved multiple layers of authority, and general officer involvement in individual personnel matters was extremely unusual except in circumstances of particular significance. However, General Williams continued, her tone shifting to indicate that the resolution of the identification issue was not the end of the interaction. Your presence here this morning presents an opportunity that requires immediate attention. The word opportunity carried implications that suggested Maria's routine morning was about to become anything but routine. The general staff, who had maintained respectful distance during the identification-verification discussion, moved closer in response to subtle signals that indicated the interaction was moving into more substantive matters. Their positioning suggested that whatever was about to be discussed involved operational matters requiring appropriate security and confidentiality protocols. Staff Sergeant, your personnel file indicates exceptional performance in convoy operations and logistics coordination, General Williams stated, her comment reflecting detailed knowledge of Maria's service record that went far beyond what would be typically available for routine personnel interactions. This level of familiarity suggested that Maria's career had been reviewed in connection with specific operational requirements. Maria felt a mixture of pride and apprehension as she realized that her professional performance had apparently been evaluated at levels far above her normal chain of command. The attention was gratifying but also created pressure and expectations that could significantly impact her immediate future and career trajectory. Yes, ma'am, convoy operations have been my primary specialty throughout my military career, Maria replied, acknowledging the general's comment while maintaining the professional tone appropriate for interaction with senior leadership. Her response was factual but cautious, as she remained uncertain about the direction the conversation was taking. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, I have reviewed your performance evaluations, mission reports, and recommendations from your commanding officers, General Williams continued, indicating that Maria's professional record had been subjected to comprehensive review by senior leadership. This level of scrutiny was typically reserved for personnel being considered for special assignments or significant responsibilities. The implication that her career had been reviewed by general officers created a sense of validation for Maria while simultaneously raising questions about what operational requirements might have prompted such high-level attention to her qualifications and performance record. Your record demonstrates exactly the combination of technical expertise, leadership capability, and operational flexibility required for a special mission that has developed this morning, General Williams explained, beginning to reveal the connection between the identification-verification incident and her personal presence at the command post. Maria began to understand that the morning's events were not the result of random circumstances but, rather, the culmination of a selection process that had identified her as suitable for responsibilities that required general officer attention and approval. The realization was both exciting and intimidating as she contemplated the potential scope of whatever mission was about to be presented. Staff Sergeant, I am personally ordering you to assume immediate command of the special convoy operation scheduled for departure this morning, General Williams announced, her tone carrying the full authority of military command. The direct order from a general officer represented a dramatic shift in Maria's role and responsibilities that would test every aspect of her military training and experience. The magnitude of the assignment settled over Maria as she realized that she was being entrusted with operational command by one of the most senior officers on the base. The responsibility was both an honor and a significant challenge that would require her to demonstrate the leadership capabilities that had apparently been recognized through her performance record. The weight of General Williams' orders settled over Maria as she processed the reality of being personally selected by a general officer to lead what was clearly a mission of exceptional importance. The transition from routine morning activities to command responsibility represented a dramatic shift that would test every aspect of her military training and leadership development. "Ma'am, I am honored by your confidence and ready to execute the mission," Maria responded with the professional acknowledgement appropriate for receiving direct orders from senior leadership. Despite her surprise at the unexpected assignment, her military training provided the automatic responses necessary for accepting significant responsibility. General Williams nodded approvingly at Maria's immediate acceptance of the assignment, recognizing the professional attitude that had undoubtedly contributed to her selection for the special mission. The general's assessment skills, honed through decades of military leadership, confirmed that the choice of Maria for convoy command had been appropriate. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, this convoy operation involves transporting sensitive diplomatic personnel and classified materials to a forward operating base under time-critical circumstances, General Williams explained, providing Maria with essential mission parameters while maintaining appropriate operational security protocols. The description immediately conveyed the high-stakes nature of the assignment. The mention of diplomatic personnel and classified materials indicated that the convoy would be carrying cargo and passengers whose safe transport was essential for operations extending far beyond routine supply missions. Maria understood that failure would have consequences extending through military and political channels that could affect operations at the highest levels. The original convoy commander has been hospitalized due to a medical emergency that occurred during pre-mission preparations, General Williams continued, explaining the circumstances that had created the leadership vacancy requiring immediate resolution. The timing of the medical emergency had apparently created a situation requiring rapid identification of qualified replacement leadership. Maria realized that her selection represented not just recognition of her qualifications but also the urgent operational requirements that demanded immediate deployment of capable leadership. The combination of mission importance and time constraints created pressure that would test her ability to perform under the most demanding circumstances. Your personnel file indicates experience with security protocols, route planning, and emergency response procedures that make you uniquely qualified for this assignment, General Williams explained, providing context for the selection decision that had resulted in Maria's unexpected elevation to convoy command. The detailed knowledge of her qualifications suggested that the selection process had involved comprehensive evaluation of available personnel. The validation of her professional capabilities by senior leadership provided Maria with confidence while simultaneously creating awareness of the expectations that would accompany her performance in the special mission. Her reputation and future career prospects would be significantly influenced by her success or failure in executing the assigned responsibilities. "Ma'am, what are the specific operational parameters and timeline for the convoy departure?" Maria asked, seeking the detailed information necessary for effective mission planning and execution. Her question demonstrated the professional focus on operational requirements that had contributed to her selection for the assignment. The convoy must depart within 90 minutes to meet diplomatic scheduling requirements that cannot be adjusted, General Williams replied, providing the critical timeline information that would govern all subsequent planning and preparation activities. The tight departure schedule eliminated the possibility of extended preparation time and required immediate mobilization of resources and personnel. The 90-minute timeline created significant challenges for mission planning that would typically require several hours or even days of detailed preparation. Maria's ability to organize and execute complex operations under compressed timelines would be tested by the demanding schedule imposed by diplomatic requirements. The convoy will consist of 12 vehicles carrying 16 diplomatic personnel, specialized communications equipment, and classified materials requiring enhanced security protocols, General Williams continued, providing additional operational details that define the scope and complexity of the mission. The size and composition of the convoy indicated significant logistical challenges requiring precise coordination. Maria mentally cataloged the resources and coordination requirements implied by the mission parameters. 16 diplomatic personnel would require specific security and comfort considerations beyond those typical for military passengers. Specialized communications equipment would involve technical requirements and security protocols that added complexity to standard convoy procedures. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, you will have complete operational authority over all convoy personnel and resources, General Williams stated, providing Maria with the command authority necessary for effective mission execution. The clear delegation of authority eliminated potential confusion about decision-making responsibility during mission execution. The grant of complete operational authority represented a significant level of trust and responsibility that reflected both the importance of the mission and confidence in Maria's leadership capabilities. Her decisions would affect the safety and mission success for personnel and equipment representing significant military and diplomatic resources. Ma'am, I request immediate access to current intelligence reports, route analysis, and communications protocols for the operational area, Maria said, identifying the critical information requirements for effective mission planning within the constrained timeline. Her systematic approach to information gathering demonstrated the professional methodology that had contributed to her selection. My staff will provide complete mission briefing materials and intelligence updates within 15 minutes, General Williams replied, acknowledging Maria's information requirements while maintaining the urgent timeline necessary for mission success. The commitment to rapid information transfer reflected the exceptional priority attached to the convoy operation. The promise of comprehensive briefing materials within 15 minutes indicated that significant resources were being dedicated to ensuring Maria's success in the special mission. The level of support reflected both the importance of the operation and the investment in her performance as convoy commander. Staff Sergeant, this mission requires not just technical competence but also the leadership judgment to adapt to unexpected circumstances that may develop during transit, General Williams emphasized, highlighting the dynamic nature of convoy operations and the importance of flexible decision-making capabilities. Her comment acknowledged that even the most detailed planning could not anticipate all possible contingencies. Maria understood that the general's emphasis on adaptability reflected the reality that convoy operations involved constantly changing circumstances requiring real-time assessment and decision-making. Her ability to balance adherence to operational plans with appropriate responses to unexpected developments would be crucial for mission success. The diplomatic personnel include representatives from allied nations whose safety is essential for ongoing international cooperation efforts, General Williams added, providing additional context that emphasized the far-reaching implications of mission success or failure. The international dimensions of the assignment extended responsibility beyond immediate military considerations. The involvement of allied diplomatic representatives indicated that Maria's performance would be observed and evaluated by personnel whose assessments could affect relationships extending far beyond her immediate military chain of command. Success would enhance not just her personal reputation but also the broader perception of military professionalism and capability. Ma'am, I understand the significance of the mission and accept full responsibility for its successful execution, Maria stated, providing formal acknowledgement of the assignment while demonstrating understanding of the broader implications involved. Her acceptance reflected both professional confidence and personal commitment to excellence. General Williams extended her hand to Maria in a gesture that combined official recognition with personal encouragement. The handshake represented formal transfer of command authority while also conveying confidence in Maria's ability to meet the exceptional challenges of the special mission. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, your country and your allies are depending on your leadership today, General Williams said, providing final motivation that connected Maria's immediate responsibilities to larger purposes of national and international service. The statement elevated the personal stakes while reinforcing the honor inherent in the assignment. As General Williams departed to attend to other command responsibilities, Maria found herself alone with the reality of commanding a convoy operation of unprecedented importance within a timeline that would challenge every aspect of her military training and experience. The transformation from routine morning activities to extraordinary responsibility was complete. The next several hours would test Maria's leadership under the most demanding circumstances of her military career. Her success or failure would affect not just her personal reputation but also the broader mission of international cooperation and military effectiveness that depended on flawless execution of complex operations under challenging conditions. Maria walked toward the convoy staging area with new authority and responsibility, ready to demonstrate that the trust placed in her by General Williams had been well-founded. The special mission awaited, and her leadership would determine whether diplomatic objectives and military reputation would be enhanced or compromised by the day's operations.